Welcome to Whips in the Dungeon 101.33. Today we're going to talk about negotiations. We've been practicing with our whips. We're ready to play. Before we do a whip scene, we need to actually negotiate with the whip catcher or the whip bottom. And there's a lot of different approaches to negotiation, and there's different reasons why you do negotiation. You can negotiate a relationship situation, long-term, short-term. This is primarily just negotiating a whip scene. And this is 20 years of play in the dungeon, speaking from my perspective. You're going to find your own way, but hopefully this will help you play safe. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm never going to approach a whip catcher for a whip scene, not for the first dance. I'm going to wait. Hopefully they'll watch me throw in the dungeon. That little light bulb will go off in their head, and they'll want to know what that feels like. They'll go, ooh, he's pretty good. I wonder what that feels like. And then hopefully they will come up to me and ask if I would be willing to have a dance with them. And at that point, we negotiate a scene. And generally, I just pull my toy bag out and I go through what I'm going to use with a first scene, with the first time I play with someone. I'm going to need a whip that I can do a warm-up with. So I'm going to show them a galley whip. I'm going to start with a galley whip. It's a nice warm-up whip to get the skin warmed up and up to temperature. And then I'm going to use a cat, in this instance a tomcat. The reason I go to a cat is it's a next level of intensity from a galley whip. And with a cat, I can vary the sensations and get a real good feel from the bottom as to how they're handling intensity and pain. Okay, then the next whip I'm going to throw is going to be a snake whip. And I'm going to show them a snake whip and talk about my specialty cracker and whether they want marks or no marks. My personal goal with the first scene with anyone is to not mark. The other goal is to not make it I want to make it an enjoyable experience so that they want to come back to me for a second dance. It's a real shame if you have a real intense whip scene with a newbie and then they never want to feel the whip again the rest of their life. What a disaster that is. And then I'll show them a bullwhip. I'll explain to them about a bullwhip, but I'll also say that we may or may not end up playing with a bullwhip on our first dance because I want to see how they're processing a single tail. And again, I really do wait and see how they process it. I don't always play with a bullwhip the first time, but if they're doing well, I do introduce them to a bullwhip. The other thing you want to ask is about any kind of medical conditions. Are they diabetic? Anything that they would need to let you know about that might come up during a scene. Do they have any triggers? Do they have a trigger with gunshots? If they do, you may or may not want to use hearing protection, or at least talk about how they might process a whip crack. Ask them about impact play, how much experience they have with that type of play, and do they tend to lose their legs or not. If they tend to lose their legs, you might end up, for safety reasons, wanting to cuff them and have them restrained. I typically, if someone doesn't like to lose their legs, I like them freestanding. And when we get deeper into dungeon play in future videos, I'm going to explain in detail why I prefer freestanding over being restrained. But that will get you started with the first whip scene. Again, I never approach someone for a first whip scene, so if you want a whip scene with me and our paths cross down the road, just tell me you've watched this video and we can get right into it. Today's keyword is red hide.